Hi, it's Sonine, and I wanted to make a quick video to put up for you guys on our class playlist of kind of what I did in class today in terms of being able to make a clipping mask on top of a shape. Your first assignment was learning how to make shapes, fill them, and what I want to do now is show you how, if you wanted to clip an image to some of these shapes, that this is how you could do it. So here we go. I'm going to open up Photoshop and do File, New. And I want this one to be 5 by 5 is what we worked on earlier. So I'm going to keep it at 5 by 5. Resolution's at 300. Check that, guys. Please make certain you have inches. Several of you today still were doing pixels and wondering why you couldn't zoom in any larger or why it was so small. It's because of this. So take your time. Make sure everything is the way you want it, and then white, and then hit create. And then we have our 5 by 5 square. And so if you want to, you can go ahead and fill this with a color if you would like. So I'm going to go Edit, Fill, and choose a color. Maybe something along those lines. Okay, okay, and there we go. So then what I'm going to do now is make a new layer and go back to what we've worked with before and what we know. And I'm going to grab the elliptical marquee tool. I'm going to come over to my board. I am going to hold the Shift key and Alt key as I now can pull out, and I can create a circle from the center. And so, as we've talked about before, as you see, these are just the marching ants. There is nothing in this. This is just a selection of air. And we can't clip something to air if you think about it. So what we need is to fill it. The color does not matter because we're going to be putting an image on top of it. So, what we need to look at this is like it's glue. So you're just filling it with glue. So you don't have to be too particular with the color. Like I said, you can come in and do white, gray, black, just do it. And then that needs to be, that we're creating the object that the image we're going to bring in is actually going to clip to. So what I'm going to do is go Edit and Fill. And we can do color and then drop down, but if you go down here, there's black, gray, and white. So maybe I'm just going to hit 50% gray. There we go. Hit OK, and I have a gray circle. Now I have something that's solid, that's filled, that I can clip an image on top to. So now I'm going to hit Command D to deselect. So then the next thing I'm going to do is I want to bring an image into my Photoshop. And so the next thing you do is, I've already put it on my desktop, I've saved it, so get images that you want to work with, and then I'm going to do Place and Embed. And we'll talk about linked after we talk about embed. If you embed something, that means it becomes part of it. So this image is now going to be part of this document, but when you embed images, it does make for a larger document, so be aware of that. When you link an image, it needs to be, you need to also send the image along with the file for someone to be able to see it. So what I want to talk with you about first in this class is we're just going to be working with embedded objects, and then later on we'll talk about linked. So what I would like you to do is place and embed, and you can go to the desktop and find the image that you would like to. So let's see, I'll just grab Miss Brigitte Bardot. Here she is again. And what's going to happen is you'll see this big X that comes through here, and you'll see this. What's going to happen is you can't do anything to this image unless you double click it like I just did, or you hit return. And so I'm going to do that again. Control Z took me back, remember? Now I'm going to go Place, Embed, go back, get Brigitte, place her, and then this is in transform mode. So I can actually here make her smaller or larger depending. So I can bring her in like this if I want and do this. And once I've done that, you must hit enter if you want to do anything else. But it comes in that transform mode. Also too, please know that you need to hold the Shift key if you want to make something larger or smaller. If you don't hold the Shift key, this can happen, and the image gets distorted. So what I need for you to do is I'm going to hit OK, and look what happens. So I'm going to Control Z back, and then one more time, File, Place, Embedded, and let's get going. So there she is. I'm going to place her, hold the Shift key, and then you can strain the proportions and nothing gets distorted in this. Now, you might want distorted things later, and that's awesome, but right now we don't. So I've got this. Now I'm ready to go, so I can double click it or hit enter on your keyboard or return, and it is in, and it is on its own layer right now. And you want to have the actual image on top of the shape that you want to clip it to, because the shape is going to be, like I said, it's kind of that glue. It's the adhesive that the image is going to clip to. So what we need to do is, on this one, I'm on this layer, hold the Alt key and hover between the two layers. And you'll notice over here, if you're holding the Alt key, if you notice on the bottom right where my layers are, as soon as I hit between the two, you see that square with a arrow pointing down on the left. As soon as it gets to that with the Alt key still held down, just click it and it clips that image to this image. So you can see that they're clipped together. And now what that allows you to do, you're like, oh, well, maybe I don't want her quite like that. It didn't line up the way you want. Depending on what you want to do, if you want to mess with the image some more and manipulate it, then make certain that you're on the image layer. I'm going to hit V, which is our move tool, and go here, and then I can move her around like this if I would like. Also too, now this is where I introduced the transform tool to you earlier. Maybe I want that image to be smaller. So if you go here with edit, you've got transform, and you can do scale, rotate, and we'll play with these later on in class. But right now there's free transform, and the shortcut to free transform is Command T, or you can find it right here in your edit menu. So I'm going to go over here and hit Command T, and then you can see it's ghosted, but you can see the shape of the image behind it. We've clipped it to this, so that's why we're only seeing that. Maybe I want to make it a little smaller. And now I want to move it around a little and get her in. And if I hold the Alt key, I'm doing it from the center. I'm making it smaller from here. If I hold the Shift key only, I'm making it smaller from the top right. So let me move her, and so maybe that's good right in there. So this is where I want her, and if I'm okay with it and you're okay with it, hit return or enter on your keyboard. Now let's say same thing, like, oh, maybe I want the circle to be a little larger or smaller. Same thing, go over here. I was on that layer. Now I've clicked on my circle layer, hit Command T, and now you notice you're able to manipulate the circle if you would like, bigger or smaller. And you can also move that around as well until you get it just the way you want it. And when you're happy with it, hit enter or return on your keyboard, and now you have these together. So now what ends up happening is, if you want to move these two at the same time, you can do a couple of things. You can hold the Shift key, and this is already selected, so the image itself is selected, but to select them together, I'm going to hold the Shift key and select the layer key. Now they're both selected and still on the move tool. Then I'm able to move them around. Now if you are okay with this and you know this is what you want, you can actually collapse the layers or merge them together, or if you're still not certain, you might want to come back later and manipulate them. If you still want to duplicate this layer or these layers, what you can do is hold the Alt key and drag, and it'll duplicate them because they're still both selected. And then what it's done on this one is it's actually put them together. So we have, if you see here, these two, and it duplicated it again, clipped. I'm going to Command Z or Control Z back. If you are happy with this and you know you're happy, you can merge these two together by doing layer, and then you can merge layers at Control E. So I'm going to come here with this top one, make sure it's the top one, and then it'll merge to the one below. If I do this, it's going to merge to the background. So make sure the two that you want to merge, or the layers you want to merge, the one under, you can go here and automatically merge to the one below. And if you notice over here, it has. If you're wanting to merge more than 2 or 3 together, then you'd use the Shift key and make sure they're all selected, and then you would do Command E. So we have this. I'm going to merge, so I'm going to hit Command E and merge the layer below it. Now I don't have to worry about selecting it. They are together here. And now if I want to make a duplicate layer, I just hit Alt and drag. Or what you can do is Command J, and that will duplicate the layer, but it does it right on top of the last layer. So sometimes you're like thinking it didn't work. Just click and move and you'll see that it did. Also, Photoshop will let you know when you've lined up. And so we can have a few of those. And so you can have a few of them this way. And then this is where you could play. Maybe you want this one in the middle to be a little larger. Command T, hold the Shift key, make her a little larger, bring her down. Computer's telling me it's centered, so I hit Enter or OK. Then I go to the last Brigitte Bardot and I hit Command T, and I make her even a little larger than that one. And then I bring it down, and the computer will tell me when it's centered. And then if I like that, and then on this one I think I might want to bring it in a little more. Now notice how it's heavy on this side and then heavy on that side. So then this is where I can select all three at once. So I'm going to hit this bottom one, and then I'm going to hold the Shift key and hit the last one that I want to select. And notice how it selects anything in the middle. So now I know all three of these are selected. I hit the V to move, and then I can move it. And the computer's telling me right now it's centered between, you can see that it's centered vertically in here. So now I've moved it into the middle of, or the top, and it's, like I said, it's centered vertically. Now you can play around, and then the computer will let you know when you can play around and center it there, and so on and so on. And then just play around with placement. So maybe I want it lower and I want it down here. Also too, you wanted to tilt it. Command T, remember we were able, now they're all selected. I can make all of them smaller to fit in because they're still all selected. So that Command T or that transform tool allows you to play around with this. Also there's a rotate. You can do them like this if you wanted. I really don't want to, so Command Z to take it back. And then if I'm okay with this, I go up here, and then once again I can move it up here if I wanted this on my board. Now I have that. They're still all selected. So now if I just want to play with one of them, I'm going to click one of them, and then that way now I can individually work on the layers again. So this is where I had showed you something quick you could do. We'll play around more with filters and that kind of thing. But if you wanted to change the hue and the saturation, you could click on that layer, go to Image, Adjustments, and Hue Saturation. This allows you to play with color. Since this is black and white, to begin with, you're not going to get a lot of color changes to it, but it's a little bit subtle. You can see it just in that very first small one I'm working on. I can play around with maybe the saturation, bring that up a little, and then we kind of get this purple tint to it. You can come over here and get a green, maybe a warmer tint. So that's just something that you could do if you would like. I'm going to hit cancel, and that's not something that I want to do. So now what I'm going to show you, I've showed you how to clip a image to a circle or a shape. Now I'm going to show you how to clip a color to this. So let's say I want to have a pink tone to this. And what I'm going to do at that point is I need to fill pink on top of her. And what I'm going to do is add a layer on top of the one I want to work with. And there it is. And I'm going to title this one Pink. And I'm going to edit, fill, and then I'm going to go to color and choose a nice pink that you want to work with, or I want to work with. Choose whatever color you'd like. Maybe that's still, let me go pinker. No, I'm getting too choosy. Sorry. Here we go. I'm going to go with that one. All right, so I'm going to hit OK, and then hit OK. And now this is pink. It's really pink. And I've covered up everything. And you're like, wait, I just covered it up. Here's what you do. Remember we talked about this briefly. I want to show this to you in this demo so you know what we're doing. And you can always come back to this video and take a look. I'm going to go to multiply. and it blends that mode to it, okay? Now the problem is it's still filling the entirety of the page, and I'm not able to see my background color because this color is now on top of my background. So the same thing you do, we did with the image on top of the shape, I'm going to take this filled shape or this filled this board of pink and clip it to the shape of the image as well. So same thing, just hold the Alt key, hover until you see the two, or you see the two come together, which is that square and that arrow. Click it. Now I have clipped that color to this. Now to me that's a little much, and you can play around with the color. You'll adjust it and get it right. Now what I'm going to do is go up here to the opacity on the pink and lower it. And so I can lighten that, and notice now I just get kind of that pink kind of tinge to it. And you can control that as well. And there you go. And so now I've got a color to work with, and like say maybe I'm thinking I really still don't like that. I can go back to Hue Saturation. I have some color choices now. I can warm it up, really take it green, but I think I'll stay somewhere around there. You can also play with the lightness here, and you can make it really saturated or even change the saturation to where it's subtle. So I have that. Let's say you like it. I'm going to hit OK, and now I was able to clip a color and do that. So this is a couple of ways to use kind of the quick clipping within this. I know some of you are using the Citrix app, and it is not working well for you guys on the Mac in terms of using the Alt key. And what I've noticed today is that if you click Alt and you do this, a pop-up menu comes up and it says create clipping mask, and you're going to have to highlight that. So I would strongly encourage any of you with Macs that this Citrix, you know, it's just a copy of a software program. It's an app from the school. It's not directly from Adobe. So I would strongly encourage you to go to Adobe and to download the Creative Cloud and use your student discount code, and you also get a free month or month trial using it, and it'll really make it a lot easier for those of you who are struggling using the Citrix with your Macs. But okay, so thank you.